Transmutations is the fourth full-length album from Candelabrum, a Portuguese ambient or atmospheric black metal band, and one that we could, I guess, there were some records and demos from this group that were much more of an almost dungeon synth or just purely ambient or black ambient works. So eventually, what came from those early demo tapes was black metal, and it was pretty bad on their first album. I think as they worked through their first two records, they finally found a sound that was maybe just palatable enough to where the unique sound design of it made sense, and the use of simple synth loops and very stylized sound design made sense in terms of music. And I would say that this isn't a band that you're going to find particularly tuneful. This is a very repetitive and atmospheric experience, and it relies on its subtle ambient shifts to convey its passage. And I think that if you're not familiar with their past work and you strike into if you just go back to Necrotelepathy, that might put you off the band entirely. The vocals were horrendous on that record. The recording was maybe too raw for even a lot of people, but maybe not the most grim out there. And for me, I really didn't connect with this band at all until I hit a couple of songs on Portals, their second album. I think that translated well into a more refined vision and maybe a little bit more indulgent sound on Nocturnal Trance in 2022. And when I reviewed it, briefly, there was definitely some sort of indie rock or shoegaze impulse to that record that didn't sit well with me. I really appreciated the gloomy sound design and the unique focus of their music, and I recognized that it did stand out, though I didn't find that it was something that I would come back to. Well, then why did I review Transmutations? I believe they've made quite an interesting stride here in terms of doing something that is similar. It comes from kind of the same place and aims for a similar sound, but they've just done it better this time around. They've written some songs that I think are more worth listening to. There's a little bit of kind of almost like a post-punk feeling to some of these songs that work, and that's going to be a difficult thing to convey in a clip because this whole thing is one eerie hallway of sound. So we'll cut to a clip here and see what we can parse from that. So this won't be a long review because I really feel like this is just one long corridor of song that is working through variations of different simple progressions that are differentiated by synth loops and sounds that force us down a linear path. And you're either in the moment and enjoying the droning, repetitive feeling of it, or you're kind of already out of it. There's a very singular, ominous pace that runs through the whole thing that is ethereal as often as it is oppressive and droning. And for me, that was something I hated at first and then came to enjoy once I returned to it. It does feel like there's a gravity to all of it that forces you down its path, and I liked the way that some of the riffs do change up throughout the album, and maybe if your perception of time is being blurred by whatever substance or feeling that you're having at the time, that will help kind of push you through there. I do think that some of the drumming sounds pretty bad on this record, and some the production values are uniquely stated as such, and you'll have to just experience that yourself. But that doesn't mean the atmosphere is not worth anything, and I found that it was transfixing. It was interesting as an overall progression, and no matter how much it felt like it didn't move at times. Ultimately, I had a nice time with this record in terms of appreciating its textural value and its simple sort of muddy statements. There wasn't much else for me to say about it. I feel like it is an experience more than it is an album to pick apart or analyze too deeply, and without the lyrics or any information on any of it, I think that's kind of what they want you to have, is just an experience through this abyssal corridor, and let it be. So for me, again, that's a moderately high recommendation. I don't know that it will have some value worth returning to, but I don't don't know that there's any real depth to it that I'm going to really remember too profoundly in the future. And I think it's uniquely stated enough to where it feels like a proper progression of where Candelabrum have been and are the direction they're moving in, something a little bit more tuneful and digestible in a sitting. Overall, a pretty good record. Very specific listener for this type of thing. So see if you're that person. This released on April 25th. And go ahead, read my review and see if this is your kind of thing.